All right, guys, welcome back. We told you that we have four today. So we've got two more tonight. We've got Van Harbor in Belize, and we also have the team at Naomi's Village in Kenya. So we're going to start off with Van Harbor. Got a really incredible story here. They're with Transformation Ministries, and what they have a passion for is developing Christians in underprivileged countries.
And that's incredible. Going to these underprivileged countries, going to these countries that need people to come in and not only help teach them the gospel, but just help them improve the areas that they live in is absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. And so we're going to hear Chase and Logan as they interview Van and his team. I believe it's him and his wife. And we're just going to hear the story that they have. They started off in Cancun, and we're going to hear how they got to Belize. So we're going to kick it to them now, and we hope you enjoy their story.
Hey everyone, welcome to our interview. My name is Chase Durham. I'm the student pastor here at Cottonwood Creek Church, and I am joined by Logan Andrew. She is the assistant student minister here at Cottonwood in our student ministry. And our special guest today is Van Harbor and his wife Sherilyn with Transformation Ministries in Belize. If you guys are unfamiliar with Belize, it is a very small country that borders Mexico and Guatemala. It's just north of Honduras on the Caribbean Sea in Central America. Van, Sherilyn, thank you guys so much for joining us. As I was preparing to meet you all, I read your ministry bio and your value sheet, and I was just so blown away and encouraged by all of the different things that you guys are getting to do down in Belize. So in order to get us started, why don't you go ahead and start by sharing a little bit about you and Sherilyn and what led you all to be missionaries down in Belize?
Well, thank you, Chase and Logan. It's great to be with Cottonwood Creek today. We have roots in Collin County and McKinney and Allen, so we know the terrain back there in North Texas. We were living in North Texas and raising a family. Not to get too long of a story, but we had always had a desire to go do missions. And through all life's events, we had a lot of good church experience along the way. And we reached a point living in McKinney where our youngest graduated from high school. And we were part of a fellowship that had a Bible school in Cancun, Mexico. And we had taken a couple of trips to see it, experiment with it, kind of learn what all was going on down there. And the Lord just kind of said, if not now, when? And if you don't go now, most likely you may never go.
And why were you waiting?
I just didn't have the faith. Basically, I didn't have the faith to move my whole family down to the mission field. I was a businessman, loved business, but that was the bottom line, is I didn't have that faith. I just couldn't put it together. I could not see how a family with teenagers could move. Yeah. And that was the real honest truth. I didn't have the faith to do it. But at that point, launching our youngest, our daughter was about doing well in college. We just thought, this is the window, and we have an opportunity. We have a relationship, and we can do it if we want to. And I think, Sherilyn had wanted to for years. It took me a lot longer to hear the call, but we just decided to go for it.
Isn't that funny how our wives are typically the ones that are ready, and the husbands are like, I don't know if I'm ready yet.
Let's keep praying.
And let me say this too. So when he did say yes, he was thinking it was going to take a year or two. And I remember saying, if you're saying yes, you just be ready for God to fast track it. And within 6-8 months, we were on the field. That's how fast we sold everything, moved.
Wow. Well, in your ministry sheet and kind of hearing you guys talk, there's just this language of you guys both feeling God pulling you to missions, pulling you to Cancun, and then later pulling you to Belize. And I remember as a student hearing missionaries and ministers even talk about this pulling from God and this calling on their lives. And it kind of being a difficult thing for me to understand, what does that even mean? And then also, was there at any point you were fearful of maybe not hearing God correctly, or just trying to discern that pulling, I guess?
I can start.
Yeah.
I can remember when I was 16 years old, and I graduated early, so I was probably a junior, senior in high school. And I just felt that call. I felt a call to foreign missions, China in particular. And yes, I had so much fear. It's just the fear of the unknown, I think, and the fear of going to another country and learning a language and all of those things. And I remember really just pressing through that. And I can just still remember I had a little devotional that I was reading, and reading that devotional. And it was just that perfect timing where the Lord basically said, am I enough? Are you going to, if I call you to do something, am I enough to take care of you? And so that was really that was what I needed to hear. And it still was fearful at times, but the reward was so much greater than even having to face that fear for me.
Yeah.
And another part for me was my world was Wichita Falls, Texas, and Lubbock, Texas. That was my worldview. I went to Texas Tech. But out of Texas Tech, we did a spring mission trip out to San Francisco. And so for the first time in my life, this little, sheltered, this is 1970s and 80s worldview of Wichita Falls and Lubbock, Texas, to be shifted to San Francisco and to see where sin could end up. That was kind of the shocker for me, was to see what an unchristianized, a lost culture, where it could all eventually turn into. And it just captured my heart. I thought, this is the kind of place I've got to serve. Wow. And so it's just something that I think God plants inside of you and just puts that desire for it. And there's I think with a desire for the missions, there's kind of a distant. I just can't stay home. I just can't stay here. I've got to go to the mission field.
I love hearing that.
And I should mention, so, I was just going to say, I didn't mention that after I graduated from college, I did go to, with the Journeyman program, and I worked 2 years in South Korea. So I got to have my mission experience there, and then came back, and that's when I met Dan.
That's really cool. Whenever students are asking us, like, how do you discern a call to ministry or missions, or like they ask about this pulling, this leading, our answer is always exactly what you guys said. Like, you have to be in the Word. Like, you have to be seeking the Lord. And when you are seeking the Lord, that is when, He's going to really speak to you and lead you and guide you and pull you certain places. So
and he'll confirm it over and over too. He won't just ask you to do that without confirming it.
That's really good word. Thank you guys for sharing that. So when I think about Belize, we have our spiritual climate here in North Collin County, being in the Bible Belt and stuff like that. But what's the spiritual climate like in Belize? Is there a predominant like religion or belief system, or what are you guys dealing with?
Well, it considers itself a Christian nation. If you read all the textbooks, they were founded, like the U.S., on Christian morals and standards. It's a colony of the British. So the Anglican Church was kind of the first church here. But of course, just like the U.S., all that has faded away. Now, if you look at statistics, I say it's about 40% Catholic by name. We don't know an active Catholic, but by name, if you ask the population, what is your religion, they would default to Catholic because grandma was.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of a mixture of some. What's the word in Africa?
There's mystical and then witchcraft.
The Garifuna people, a bunch of beliefs has roots in Africa. And so with a lot of spiritualism, mysticism, it's just a big old blend of all kinds of mystical, religious mix. And there's no real clear, distinct, strong denomination?
My description is just that they've been evangelized, but it has not transformed the culture. You see very little of even Christian values in the work ethic or how they treat people. It's very needy.
So obviously we know that everybody's greatest need is the gospel, right? And we know that you are trying to meet that need for the people in Belize with sharing and evangelizing. But what are some of the other maybe greatest needs of the people in Belize that you've seen, whether physical or spiritual?
Yeah, well, I would say to me, one of the biggest things that we see over and over again is this, just the spirit of hopelessness. I was thinking about it growing up in America as a child. You have that American dream, even though it's changing a lot. There's still this sense of I can be something. There's this adventure that you're on in your life, and you're told that there are things that you can achieve. But by and large, the Belizean has no hope. I mean, we see that with the kids that we work with over and over again. And so, in Hebrews it says that faith is the substance of things hoped for. So even to try to call them into a place of faith when they have no hope, and they have no, that hasn't been developed in them at all, that they could do something. And in fact, when they try, there's such a competition there, everybody's pulling them down. So instead of you being lifted up, you're just being constantly pulled down. And so to me, that's one of the biggest ones.
It's the breakdown of the family unit, like lots of places. Because of that, there's lots and lots of abuse, lots and lots of neglect, no sense of self-esteem. The Belizean culture, the Belizeans will even tell you, they tear each other down. They don't want anybody to rise up. If somebody starts to have a little better life, they'll literally try to pull it back down. There's such a mean, dysfunctional, ugly spirit. Wow. Because that's all they've known. All they've known is neglect to the other degrees of abuse.
Yeah.
And so they're, parenting is a big deal, just spiritual parenting and parenting on any level. Siblings parent each other because there's such family breakdown.
Wow. So with that spirit of just hopelessness, with the family dysfunction and family breakdown, what are the various ministries that you guys are engaged in to really be meeting those emotional, physical, spiritual needs of the people of Belize?
There's a lot to do. So we've decided, we really try to, as a missionary, you just try to pray, Lord, there's so much need. What is our part? What is our part to play? So in our stage of life and where we are, our real focus is trying to identify young leaders to develop in a healthy, holistic, healed up on the inside, really, really know Jesus, so they can begin to introduce, the fullness of the gospel to redeem humanity. And so that's our main focus, is young leaders. And then we go down from there to the next generation. And so we're involved in the high school. Sherilyn's involved with crisis pregnancies. And then we mentor lots of young leaders. There's a young life chapter here that's struggling to get on the ground, and so we're beginning to mentor some of the young life leaders. That's really enjoyable. So trying to find young lives to pour ourselves into, who can then multiply and reach the next generation. Is one approach.
Yeah, and I think as we mentor, we're trying to help them identify their gifts and their callings. And a good example is, so I've been involved with this crisis pregnancy center. So I go go once a week. They have Bible studies twice a week. And, they're working with just helping young women who have no support and have become pregnant. But one of the women that I work with there, a young woman, actually graduated from the same high school, Baptist high school, and her name is Sylvia. And so Sylvia has been like the receptionist, but I've been meeting with her just, just as I'm volunteering, getting to know her. And one of the things I find out, she lives not too far from my neighborhood. I find out that she had done a tutoring for this summer one time, and she loved it, but she quit because she didn't feel secure about it. So I started talking to her, and I said, Sylvia, what if let's go to the library and we'll go together and we'll start a program. So I went and had her, and so worked with her to help her begin to build up a tutoring program. And then a few months later, I was teaching a class on children's ministry at Christ for the Nations. And so we started taking Sylvia with us to that class. It's in another town, so we would take her with us. And so that's the kind of thing that we like to do, is to kind of survey the land and find out where those good soil is and what God's already doing, and then come along and support that and nurture it. Yeah. And that's kind of our heart. And then Christ for the Nations, we're teaching there.
Yeah, Christ for the Nations is another chance just to, again, teach young people. And the whole approach is a holistic, the fullness of the gospel, getting well on the inside, because that's the big gaping wound, is no sense of identity, no sense of worth. And so besides just grounding in the Word, there's a lot in the Word about becoming healthy and whole on the inside. Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, in favor with God and man. So we take that approach to really healing people up on the inside. So a healing discipleship journey.
Right. Man, I love that. I love your passion. And it's cool that obviously me and Chase have a similar passion for raising up and discipling and mentoring young leaders. And I heard you mention Christ for the Nations Institute, and just that idea of mentoring and educating young leaders. And so what does that look like? I'd love to hear, is that more in a classroom setting, or how do you guys, develop these young leaders in Belize?
Well, it starts in the classroom. We've been renting space. Now we've bought a couple of little what you'd call a modular building. We have 2 modular buildings to be our first little campus of Christ for the Nations.
It's about a 45-minute ride to another,
from here to
another city.
And so we have about 20 young students from right out of high school, 17, 18, all the way up to a woman who's a professor at a junior college, who's also a pastor. Her whole life, she'd wanted to go to Bible college and just never had opportunity. So she's about probably in her 50s. So that's kind of the range of the students. And they serve in different capacities in their churches, but it's using Christ for the Nations curriculum from Dallas. It's a 2-year program here. We probably will soon go to a 3-year program. They can transfer those credits to Dallas if they would ever have that opportunity. But most of them are just going to go here locally and get a little certificate of completion. And it's the basics and on into more ministry training. And then out of that atmosphere, we begin to see who we can pour into more. So there's a couple other pastors that we then identify and go to their churches, visit their churches, and build more relationship, and then ways of helping them, and then ways of helping them identify leaders in their church and helping them start training in their churches.
And there's been a real learning curve, with this, understanding culture. You can't just take a curriculum and plop it down, and so we've been learning that. We're going in our 3rd year with this, and also just learning where the students are educationally. When they say they graduated from high school, it's probably more like a 7th or 8th grade ability, And so, we've had to learn like that. And so what we've ended up doing is we have an alpha and an omega track. And so if they are highly or more highly educated, they can do that, the omega, and that qualifies them to transfer. But a lot of them can't do that. So we have this lower track. They're still in the same classes, but we have, lower expectations for them. And so things like that they're constantly on this learning curve of how to best meet their needs and bring them to a higher place.
That's really cool. So you guys get to do that with kind of.
That answers the questions?
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys get to do this kind of like with these college age kids, but you also mentioned you get to do stuff with the high school kids. And so why don't you talk a little bit about that being in this Belmont Baptist High School? Yeah, and talk about that experience.
Yeah,
It's a whole different experience.
yes, it's completely different because we're more advanced in age. We're not young pups anymore. But I didn't know for
Speak
sure.
For yourself.
Yeah, for me, I didn't know for sure that they would connect. That they would let an old white guy enter in and be a part of the world. Because a big deal here is building the relationship. It takes a long time to build a trusting relationship. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't sure how we would fly in the high school arena. And there also, it's tough. At the Belmont Baptist High School, these are the students that have either been dismissed from other schools for behavior issues, for academic issues. They are some of the most challenging students. And so, of course, just respect and order and obedience in the classroom is huge to learn how to walk in that. But after about 2 semesters, I thought, well, it's working. We connect. And so my message, I get to teach a class called Life Skills, which they've given me the liberty to just do whatever I want. And it's basically this discipleship in the real world. And talking about a big chunk about identity, who I am, what I'm here for, what's my purpose, just themes like that. And they've just really, really responded. And I make them write a little reflection at the end of each class, just a little simple, what did I learn today? What was the main thing I picked up today? And that's where I can see that, I'm touching places that they've never been to before. They've not heard they haven't heard the language of purpose, making a difference. You have value. That's all new language to them. And so in that little reflection paper, that's what my reward is, to read those papers and see that half to 2/3 are getting something. They are something sparking in them. Now there's another third or so, they're not responding. They're just there because they have to be there. But there's about a half to 2/3 that the Lord's, sparking and grabbing hearts. So it's been really fulfilling.
That's really cool. That's really cool to hear. Just like the type of kid, these are the kids that have been like outcasted. They've been kicked out. They're the ones that are very troubled and have had hard lives. And even just to hear that some of them are really being impacted by these lessons on identity and stuff. Do you have any like student testimonies that you could share? Maybe are there some students that stick out in your mind that the Lord has just been doing an incredible work in?
Yeah, just in the class time, because life here, these students, we can't do anything after class. So we've thought about doing something after class, before class, and they're bussed in and they're bussed out. The school is out on the edge of town, and nobody here has a vehicle. And so they're bussed in and they're bussed out, and you don't get to see them again. So the only ones I can talk about is the papers that I get to read. And then one that I've got to spend time with last year, he's now kind of doing an internship with a pastor here in town. So he's the only one that I could really say really is sticking with it and going forward, that we've been able to stay in touch with.
Well, one other, this is kind of a cool story. So we were involved in a project where we were building a playground, and there was a businessman and his family from California that were helping. And so one of the young women that came to help on the playground, she was there every day. He got to know her and found out that she was not in school and would love to be in school. So he went back to California, but he volunteered to pay for her schooling from now until college if she wanted it. Wow. And so her name is Jennifer. So Jennifer started school and was really excited and doing, really pressing in. And about 2 months into it, she finds out that she's pregnant. And this is just the reality, of this world. But she lives not far from us. So anyway, we started taking her to the pregnancy center, and she just recently had her baby, and she's still in there. So what happened is we were able to get her into night school. This is the only school that has night school. And so she's involved in night school. She's involved in Young Life. And it doesn't sound like the success story, but I really feel like it is, because it was like the Lord was capturing her even before this. And this is going to affect her little daughter's life as well. And then we find out, she's living in a really rough home. She was able to get out of that. So, that what you might consider testimonies, sometimes it's just getting people out of a horrible situation and getting them a chance to really connect with Jesus and to grow.
Wow. That is so encouraging. And something that I love about you guys is that you both are a team, and the Lord is using both of you and your unique giftings to be effective missionaries where He's placed you in Belize. And so I know that we've heard from you, Van, about just kind of the ways that you've been able to serve and equip, but I would love to hear from you, Sherilyn, just the unique ways that you're able to serve and be on mission in Belize.
Well, I'm also a teacher, so I teach at Christ for the Nations also. But my heart is for women and children, and especially in this culture when you see so many. I think we said that the population, it's a very high population, is under 25, and so there's such a need for just training and parenting and home life, and just encouraging these women especially to figure out how to make it, because a lot of them are, probably the majority do not have a husband. A common law marriage is a big deal here, and so the women don't have much security because the husband comes and goes depending on whether he wants to be there or not. But they make a lot of babies, and so they're just all these mamas and grandmamas that are having to take care of their kids. So some of what I do is just try to think of creative ways to encourage those mamas. And when I'm at the crisis center, it's called Hope for Life. My role there is to do counseling and just to meet with these women and encourage them and pray with them, and then also to try to look at creative ways to meet the physical needs of the ministry. But then I also each week meet probably with 8 or 9 different women who are in leadership, like a young life director, 2 are young pastors who are pastors' wives who are young mothers. One is a ministry dance instructor. So all these different women in different walks of life, but who are called into ministry. And so I just meet with them on a regular basis and try to mentor them through life and help them to get a vision and to nurture that relationship with Jesus so that they're sustained and continue to grow. So that's a big part of my heart. And then also to just look at developing some ministries. One of my, one of those goals out there is I would love to develop a ministry that goes out to the villages and does kind of like discipleship with children. Now, you have teams that come and do BBS, but they need to be discipled. They need to learn about other things than just the gospel. And so that's something I'd love to see happen, is to develop a team that could go out regularly and just minister to children consistently in these villages. So lots of dreams.
And that's really cool. And just like Logan said, it's so cool to see y'all's teamwork just in this, the way the Lord has gifted you guys and given you the passions and all these things. And even when I was reading your ministry bio, you're talking about how like the Lord pulled you guys down there, directed you guys down there, has burdened your heart in a certain way. And you even mentioned how like doors have been opened, doors have been closed, all of those things. Would y'all mind sharing, like, what are some obstacles that you guys have faced? Because obviously you're getting to do a lot of really incredible ministry, but surely you guys have come to some obstacles. So how have you guys navigated those? How have you seen the Lord provide for you in specific ways?
Well, one of the most unique for us, as we begin to consider Belize from Mexico, an American from Houston had planted a church work right here in Belmont-Penn, and his commitment was to plan it, get it launched, and then go back home. Well, when we were just considering to move here was when he was just considering to go back home. And so we had about 8 months that we were here together. As we had just enough time to build a relationship for him to trust us to say, hey, I'm leaving this church with the best guys I had available. But it would be be awesome if you could just come alongside them and then help them just continue to know how to pastor and lead. Because that was one huge event. Just the timing, just as he was leaving, we had about 8 months together, and then they returned to Houston. So that's one example of him handing us, an incredible opportunity to be involved in a influential mentoring type role. Mm-hmm. There was a real estate type person in that church who found us our housing. The property manager of our house is he's a poster child of mission work because of gospel outreach. I think it's called gospel outreach. As a little kid, a little 10-year-old, his dad had been killed, so his mom was like raising 8 little kids here in Belmopan. Well, gospel outreach adopted him, and he was one of those great soils that responded and took advantage of everything. So he went all the way through the University of Belize. Great brother, has a heart to give back. And so we've been able to work with, because of that one relationship, he's gotten us into many opportunities to help do community development. We've built a couple of playgrounds here in town because of him, because of his connection. And he's that man of favor, or the man of peace, what they would call the Bible. So through him, lots of doors are opened up to help touch people, because another big obstacle is building trust. In a place like Belize, they see lots of mission teams come and go, but they see a lot of missionaries say they're going to come and stay, but because of the hardships and some of the challenges, they go back home. So they kind of grow this resistance because they see so many come and go. They don't want to grow. You can't grow close because they know you're going to leave in a short time. So that's a big obstacle, is building relationship. So it took us a year to build enough trusting relationship with these 2 little local pastors that I mentioned to begin to really work together. So I'd say building relationships. Belize is a prejudiced nation. They'll tell you that. They're prejudiced. A lot of the classic Creole people do not like white Americans. They don't want our input. They don't want our help. They'll do just fine. There's a lot of resistance in some cultures. The language is a barrier. English is the national language, but half speak Spanish, and then the rest of them speak what they call a Creole. It's a broken. If you ever been to Louisiana, trying to understand a really thick Louisiana accent, it's worse than that. And so trying to understand these students in the classroom, it is a challenge. I have to ask them, now, we're in school. Let's practice our English. Let's practice our formal English. And so just understanding the real language of the Creole-speaking Belizeans has been tough. The heat. You know about the heat.
It is challenging. We had that in Mexico too, but the tropical heat and the electricity is expensive here. So you just have your air conditioning basically at night when we sleep. So there are times when you just really struggle with the weather. And, it's not hard to live here really though. You can get most everything you need. You don't have the Walmart and the variety that we're used to, but thankfully you can get most everything you need.
That's awesome.
We can get our needs, not our wants.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are talking about, like, you get everything you need, you only have air conditioning at night. Is there anything that from living in Belize versus America that you guys are just missing a lot? Like, you would kill for some Chick-fil-A right now, or whatever it might be.
Hutchins barbecue. If you could ship me some Hutchins barbecue, that would be awesome.
Oh, okay.
And Starbucks coffee. You like Starbucks coffee? There is a local coffee here, but
it's mostly the convenience and the choices you have at home. That's what is so different here. We have 2 or 3 restaurants we get to go to, and we have a couple of oversized convenience stores that are our grocery stores. And just so the selection's constantly changing. You don't always have the product. There's a real fluidity to what's available in the markets. So you just miss the abundant resources and selections of home.
And we basically eat hamburger and chicken. Whatever you can make with hamburger and chicken. That's about it.
That's funny. So I was talking to your brother Hal before this interview, and he said that I needed to ask you about the policemen and the repairmen in Belize. There's some funny story to this, or what?
Well, again, it's a very, very poor nation, a developing nation with a lot of corruption. And so the police force is literally ill-equipped, lacks training, and then lacks resources. And so they don't have enough vehicles. So if you call the local police station, they'll say, well, if you can come get us, we can get there to help you. Or if you're close enough, they might hop on their bicycle and come over to your house. But they just don't have the means to get to you.
Oh.
And then, the convenience store. The repairman. If you call the repairman, he might show up on a bicycle, and if he's got a bucket with a few tools in it, then you've got a really well-established craftsman. Because most of them come and they have some know-how, but they come on a bicycle and they don't have a single tool with them. So they ask you for your tools.
Or go buy them.
Or they'll survey what needs to be done, and you go to the local hardware store and you get what you need and you bring it back. But they don't have a tool. Their work clothes are shorts and flip flops. That's the attire of almost everybody. So just a little bit different scene.
Yeah, just a little bit different. I think that's a little understatement. Well, guys, as we begin to wrap up this interview, we're doing this interview to help teach and equip our students for local, national, and international missions. Do you guys have any closing thoughts or wisdom to share with our students that you guys have learned over the years?
Well, I'll say, take every opportunity you can to go on a mission trip. That's really what caught me, was going on a short-term mission trip as much as you can. Study the nations of the world. Don't just stick to U.S. of A. Study and be aware of the different needs around the globe, because there's lots and lots of places that need mission work. Would be what I would suggest. We'll talk about our internship idea.
Oh, well, yeah.
We'd love to offer, summer internships right here in Belize. We'd love to have 4 to 6 to 8 of your best come spend 6 to 8 weeks in Belize. We've got housing available and endless opportunities to do hands-on, summer mission work. Give us 6 to 8 weeks. We'll give you a great missional experience.
And I was praying about it even before I saw your questions this week, and just praying about this audience, these kids, and just asking the Lord what was a word that He wanted to share. And I was thinking about, in the kingdom, we live in this now and not yet. And you may have some who are thinking, I want to be a missionary, just like I was at 16, and so I want to prepare. But then others may not have that call. And, we're called to be world changers now. It's not just in the future. And so, when our whole heart is Transformation Ministries, is that it's not just about getting people saved and accepting Jesus as our Savior. That's the beginning. But, the goal is to go from glory to glory to glory. We're being transformed. And so the way that we're transformed is looking unto Jesus. That's what it says. We behold Him as in a mirror, and whatever you look at is what you become. And so, what I would say is fall in love with Jesus. Okay, not the church, not religion, not just your Bible. Your Bible is to tell you about Jesus, but let this be an experience, an adventure where you are walking with Jesus and you're getting to know Him more and more. And the more that you look at Him, the more that you get to know Him, then you're going to be transformed. And your world will be transformed. And so the Lord wants to do that. He wants to transform. He wants to fill this earth with His glory until Jesus comes back. we have that mandate. And so every one of us, that's our call, is to be more and more like Jesus. And that the way that you do that is get to know him. And if you struggle with that, if you feel, reluctant to go to church sometimes, if you feel like you're being forced into things, go back to that quiet moment in prayer and say, Lord, I want to know you more. Reveal yourself to me more. Show me who.
Man, Sherilyn, that was such an encouraging word. I love what you said about falling in love with Jesus and not falling in love with the church. I think that's so important for everybody, not just students. But something that I want to emphasize is that a huge part of being a missionary is being supported and raising support funds and prayer partners and all those things. And I think something that people don't really realize, I know I didn't realize this, is that supporting missionaries is actually worshipful. And I know in Philippians 4, Paul talks about how the support that he receives from the Philippian church is a fragrant offering that's pleasing to God. And I just think that's so beautiful. And so it's just something that we as a church don't really realize, is that supporting missionaries is something that is worshipful, and it's actually an opportunity for us to partner with you in the work that you're doing. And so I just want to ask you guys that what are some of the ways that our church and our students can get in contact with you, ways that that we can support you, whether that be financial or prayer, if they feel led to.
Well, we can give you our contact information. Pastor Justin Hillhouse has our contact information. We'd be glad to add anybody to our newsletter. We send out about a quarterly newsletter just to keep people up to date, send pictures, let people see what's going on. We have email.
Yeah, we have a Vonage phone too, so we can even, if somebody wanted to call and talk to us, we can certainly do that. And we use WhatsApp as a, communication all the time.
Yeah, y'all familiar with WhatsApp?
Yeah.
That's really huge in Central America.
Yeah.
That's how most everybody communicates. So that way, anything else?
No, I had one other idea I'll just mention is, if you can't come, we could explore the idea of connecting some of the teenagers, some of the high schoolers together, to have a Caribbean friends or something, and to just build a relationship. I think something like that could be really cool for us, because I think it is a struggle, especially with what we're going through right now. We get kind of inward in our feeling and our thinking, we get discouraged. But anytime that you can give out, and even if you don't feel like you have a lot, you've got more than a lot of people, and if you can just give out something, that is so powerful for others, but also for you. And so, we could explore some things like that of having, friends, that in building some relationships where you can give in your own way, in communication.
I love that. And we'll make sure all of our viewers know how to get your email address and be able to connect them with you. And man, I would love if some of our high schoolers did that internship. That sounds awesome. So
It would do.
Yeah. Van, Sherilyn, thank you guys so much just for taking the time to get on this call. And maybe one of these days we'll get a student team down to Belize. So that'd be
Great.
Really incredible.
Thank you for including us.
Absolutely. Well, students and audience, I hope that you enjoyed getting to know Van and Sherilyn Harbor and the ministry that they are getting to do down in Belize. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was incredible. I mean, just hearing the compassion that they have.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about how faithfulness has been a reoccurring theme with and obviously faithfulness is a reoccurring theme with them, but compassion is a reoccurring theme for this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As you saw, they go into these local high schools and into these pregnancy centers, and they just take care of what need is there. And, that's another thing that we see is just trying to meet the need. And that's what Van Harbor and his team down in Belize are doing.
Yeah. One of my professors from Criswell College, he would always tell us that compassion meets the need. In Jesus' ministry, what we always see is that he had compassion on the crowds because he saw a need that they had. Sometimes it was spiritual, sometimes it was physical. The 5,000, they were hungry, so Jesus fed them because he had compassion. Van Harbor had compassion on these people, so he went to preach the gospel and help them develop their area.